Gotta wait a bit so that way it actually goes through because it's still like setting up. Okay, now I can actually go and share my screen while we are. Oh, wait. Here is the. Okay, hopefully it's sharing the right screen. Let me just check to be sure everything is going according to. No? Okay. It's not sharing the right screen. Why is it doing that? Okay, there you go. Now that's better.
Yay.
Let me just, there you go, perfect. All right, looks like we are live. Welcome everyone to the 15th episode of the Lucky Charm podcast. I am your host, Leah. And of course, I am joined by my very good buddy here, G, aka the Cartoon Hotspot.
Hi everyone.
And you can kind of see I'm sharing my screen today because we will be doing our tier list ranking of the season 6 episodes that have aired so far. Obviously, season 6 has not fully ended because we're probably like maybe a little bit halfway or a little bit more than halfway now. So we're still waiting on, new season 6 episodes. It feels like an eternity now. Waiting, but yeah, we're actually going to be rating these episodes. So, all right, so let's get started. So, geez, should we do it in the order that they aired them? Because I know they're not in actual, they're not in actual order, you know?
Um,
Um,
I I don't remember the order they add. Is this the order they add them in? No, this is just a random order. But I do know the order of like the actual production order, if that makes sense.
yes. I'm kind of like thinking, in the way they aired it. I mean, like we start off with Illustrahater, like that order, I mean.
I mean, we could do that. I won't. I mean, I know it's like Illustrator and then Sublimation, and but then I kind of forget like what was after that. It kind of gets a bit jumbled up because they air like episode, I don't know, 16 and then they go back to episode 3 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. I'll actually pull up the actual the order that they aired them, because as we all know, Miraculous Ladybug, they don't like doing chronological order. Let's be honest, they don't. We're used to it. So yeah, I would say let's do it in the air date that they do it so that way it makes it easier. Um because yeah, the first one we're going to talk about is Illustrator. So I want to hear your thoughts about Illustrator, G.
Um, I re okay, when it first came out, I was kind of indifferent about it. It wasn't a bad episode. And it wasn't an episode that made me feel, oh, like this is, really, really good. It was just kind of those really chill, really nice episodes that don't get you thinking a lot. And I think it was honestly a really good start to season 6. I know chronologically it's like episode 2 or something, but
Hmm.
I think it honestly works better as episode 1. So I'm glad they aired that first. I think it's a really nice episode, and I love the ending where it was revealed that Lila is basically stalking Marinette, and she was at the same cafe as Adrian and Marinette um,
Hmm.
early on in the episode. I feel like that was a really nice cliffhanger, a really interesting cliffhanger. Um, so I'd put it in mid because I feel like the only reason why it's not higher for me is because I didn't really like the whole, or I didn't really understand the whole conflict between Adrian and Marinette. Like I get it what they were trying to say. They were saying like, oh, Marinette is kind of, anxious and doesn't really know how to act as Adrian's girlfriend. But it's like we've seen her be Adrian's girlfriend in like a couple of episodes in season 5, and she was completely fine. So I didn't really understand why we were kind of regressing. I've seen a lot of people in my comments say that, oh, they didn't. I guess it's because she's had to be Adrian's girlfriend whilst Gabriel was there, and now that Gabriel no longer has influence over them and control over them, it's kind of like, what do we do now? But I don't know. I feel like they could have emphasized that a lot more in the episode rather than have fans sort of theorize it, because there's a difference between theorizing things and pretending that's the subtext in the episode and then
Hmm.
inferring and like reading between the lines. Like I would not say that was reading between the lines. Like nowhere in the episode was it sort of implied that Marinette is kind of struggling to adjust with Gabriel's death,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's kind of a weird regressing because it's like, yeah, like when they start like dating in season 5 to an extent, it's like she at least is like more comfortable where she's not like fumbling over her words, you know. She's acting like actually normal with him, you know. And yeah, it like I kind of feel like maybe like, she's putting like she's like investing a lot more, since like in a way, I feel like Marinette is trying to be like Adrian's crutch, because
Mm,
like when you think about it, Adrian lost his mom, and then he just recently lost his dad, and obviously that's, Adrian is still like um he's kind of in a period where he's like, because here's the thing, like grief, that doesn't go away that easily. Like it takes time because you need the person to actually grieve, and then, and I kind of feel like Marinette is putting in too much effort because um, like it kind of like she's trying to be there for him. There's nothing wrong with that. But like I feel like she's kind of like trying to navigate now that, she made this promise to Adrian's father that Adrian will never find out.
mm,
But as we see, when we talk about the other episodes, um she's struggling with the secret, like so it's yeah, it's a little bit weird, but I think it's like it's kind of like a little bit of a soft reboot, if you kind of know what I mean. Like it's not like a full-on hard reboot, but it's like a
yeah.
soft reboot. And I kind of feel like they're trying to, it kind of feels like, with what they did with season 1, how like the whole intention of like the whole reason to not air them in order was to just make sure anyone can get into the show no matter which episode you watch, because the whole premise is like, oh, okay, we get to learn about the person who gets, akumatized, right? And then we're like, oh, okay, so Hawkmont sends out the butterfly. Oh, and then pretty much manipulates the victim, and then they get akumatized, and then Marinette and Adrian are like, oh, we better go transform, just akumatized villains. So um now they're kind of introducing like a little bit of new stuff, in season 6. And yeah, it's but I do agree with you, the little regressing of like why is she like like I kind of feel maybe Marinette like I think maybe she's like the type where she doesn't want to screw up the relationship, you know because it's kind of weird because like I know there was like this line of dialogue her mom says, it's like, oh, but this is her first real relationship, and then I was like, oh, we're just gonna brush over Luca then, okay. but 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 I kind of feel like, Marinette is trying to put in like so much effort. Like in a way, she's trying to be a perfectionist, which is like
Mm.
so unrealistic though, because now she's putting all this pressure on herself because she's like, oh no, I don't know how to behave around them, right? Like you could clearly see, and then Alia's like, girl, you're just like overreacting. Like she kind of has like this attitude where I think like because I think this is like the one where I think it was like Alia and Marinette are like trying to figure out the identity um of the new Hawk Moth, quote unquote. And I think with what they I think, it's a great introduction, for what's to come, you know.
Yes.
And obviously with like what you said, I think there was some people that mentioned that like, how's it Adrian just waited at that cafe when Marinette just went like, just went
Oh yeah.
like I know people criticize that. They're like, Adrian, why didn't you just leave? Like,
I said
bro.
that in my video, yeah, because I was like, in my such a long time because Illustrator came out like February of 2025.
hmm
So literally like this time last year, actually. That's so crazy to me. And I remember like rewatching that video and I was like, and the part where Adrian's just like standing there, I'm just like, girl, like you could have left. Like
Yeah.
honestly, like he's so sweet, but it's so funny to the point where it's like he's kind of like dense about it.
Yeah, he's dense. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree because it's like, bro, realistically, you should have just left. If your girlfriend just like disappeared all of a sudden, so um but yeah, I think this was a great start, obviously, we take now, like since the other heroes are there now, they actually can help out in subtle ways too, helping out if there's like any kind of, even if there's not any like akumatized villains around, and I kind of like that. It's like they're kind of showing, hey, we're
Yeah.
doing like a form of community service, I would say.
Hmm.
When you call it that, I would say that like other than fighting Akuma-sized villains, they're like, oh yeah, we could like help out, you know, um, because obviously we get to see that demonstration, with with Rena Rouge and Carapace, where I guess the foundation was like I guess whoever built that, like the foundation is terrible because obviously it started to like collapse. I was like, oh my goodness, this is not good. Um, but I think overall, yeah, I agree with you. It's a mid, because now we get to see, we're talking about, we're ranking them against the other episodes. But it's a great reintroduction into the show. For sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Illustrahater is definitely like a mid. Like it's not bad, because I think the cliffhanger like saves it, for the most part. I think what I also enjoyed is that, how like Gabriel, when he's Hawkmoth, he
Yeah.
introduces himself, um, to his victims. Like the thing with like Lila or slash Cerise, whichever name she wants to go by, um, she she shows that she is a more competent villain than Gabriel ever was. Um, and I think it really comes to show that like literally I think when they were talking to the little girl who's Illustrahater, they're like asking who's talking to you, right? To identify who it is. And obviously Lila has prepared for this and she doesn't tell her victims anything. Like and they're like asking her all these questions and then like she's like obviously like avoiding answering the questions, you know. So I think it really shows that Lila is, or Cerise, whichever name, like I said, she wants to go by, is that she's a more competent villain because she's not giving away information about herself. And I think what makes it really cool is that she actually disguises her voice, like changes her voice so that way her victim can never like identify her gender. So like, what did you think of that, G?
I think that was really, really smart because like yeah, we know it's Lila,
hmm
but I like the intrigue and the sort of I guess creepiness. Not creepiness, so that I don't mean it like that, but I guess in terms of like you will never like she's making it intentionally hard for the
hmm
heroes to kind of track her down. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
I feel like Gabriel at sometimes were a little bit sloppy with his identity, and they almost had him in the episode The Collector in season 2, but
hmm
he steered them off their path. Whereas with Lila, it's kind of like, okay, like we've got a new villain. We don't know, like people are recalling getting akumatized, but they only recall voices. So they don't know whether it's
Mhm.
multiple people working together, if it's one person switching their identity, if it's a boy, if it's a girl, a child, is it a young person, an older person? Like nobody knows. And I think that makes the heroes feel less at a more of a more at a disadvantage because it's like, okay, the playing fields are really, really not even here. So it
Mhm.
makes it all the more scary. And we're like, okay, like I'm at the edge of my seats because Lila is one step ahead of them and they don't even realize
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, Because I think I remember when you started doing your reviews of like the season 6 episodes, I kind of mentioned that I think it was like in your Illustrahater review, and I mentioned that, how I mentioned that Lila validates her victim's feelings. Because there's a huge difference between the way Gabriel and Lila, akumatize their villains. And Lila does a really good manipulation tactic of validation because
Yeah.
validation is a real thing, and I feel like you know, um like she validates their feelings and she gives them the choice if they want to accept the power. So I was like, this is a really, it kind of feels like a reverse psychology thing. Um, Like that's how I took it. I was like, wow, this feels like a really, really good reverse psychology. Like, meanwhile with Gabriel, he just like sympathizes. Um, and I remember you actually like liked my comment, and you mentioned it, I think, in later videos, um, about what I said about Lila validating her victim's feelings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I really did like that comment and it really stuck with me because I also kept mentioning it in at least like three or four more videos.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just the idea of like you said, Gabriel more so kind of forced his victims, like without
Yeah.
their consent. And in a way,
Hmm.
Lila's also doing the same. It she makes her victims feel like they have the consent to Kumite.
Yeah.
But really, it's
Hmm.
non-consensual if you really think about it. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like coercion, but in a less,
Yeah.
in that
Coercion. Yeah.
manner. So it's like I really do enjoy how Lila kind of just sits with their emotions, sort of tries to understand where they're coming from, validates it, so the victim feels like, oh, somebody is hearing me out, even if I don't actually know who
Yeah.
this person is.
Yeah.
And then she
Exactly.
hands them the illusion of a choice of being a
Yeah.
Kumato. I can't remember which villain it was, or maybe it was multiple villains, victims in season 6, where she was like, if you want, I can just, I can go. It's okay. Like I think it was the therapist, which we'll talk about in the Reckless Driver
Mm.
one.
Yeah.
But there was someone else as well, and she was like, I can go, don't worry. And then the person was like, no, wait. So that's sort of like the illusion of the choice, and I just love how they keep
Yeah.
bringing that concept back.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like I love how you mentioned illusion of a choice. It's like, yeah, like because I remember you said in, oh my gosh, what was that video you did about the illusion of a choice with Marinette and Gabriel? I
It was
forgot.
the pretension kitchen scene in season 5.
Yeah, the pretension one that you talked about that specific scene, and I do believe you're right. Like Lila, like, she's validating her victim's feelings, like you said, the victim feels like, oh, I'm being listened to, even though I don't know this person, you know. But then like the way that she does it, it's like it's so cunning, and like you said, she kind of gives them the illusion of a choice, like it's a very good manipulation tactic, um, and stuff. So I think that's why for me this episode is mid because Lila just shows she is a very, very competent villain. Um, so let me go put you in mid. Okay. Let's go talk about I think sublimation is next, yeah.
That's going in the worst. I don't even have to think twice about that.
Oh yeah. Um yeah, like obviously this episode is like introducing Sublime. I don't know who names their kid Sublime, but here we are. But I think yeah, it's kind of like this episode showcases Marinette's terrible traits really badly. Um, but I think, I think that's the whole point because obviously, Marinette, she has to take on the role of like, obviously, she is still the guardian and pretty much the leader, but now it's like, um, like she has to deal with like being in a relationship with Adrian while also balancing being a hero and going to school and all that. So, but yeah, this episode just highlights her worst, worst, like literally even her lucky charm, I think, even points it out. Because like you're fighting a villain that obviously is like deflecting their attacks, and then like when she summons her lucky charm, she's like, oh, it is my fault. I'm like, no duh. It's kind of like a no duh moment. So yeah, the episode it was like, yeah, I do agree with you. It's the worst. Because it just kind of highlights her worst traits. Um, and I just don't like I don't understand her reasoning, if you know what I mean, with Marinette's reasoning, because she's like, "Oh, my boyfriend's friends with her. I should be friends with her." I'm like, "What?" Like like her logic is kind of a little bit weird, if you know what I mean, G.
Yeah. I mean, I understand wanting to be friends with your partner's friends. I think that's fine. I don't think it's that deep personally for me. I don't think I have to be friends with everyone that
Yeah.
my partner has. And if somebody does want to be friends with their partner's friends, that's absolutely fine. I just felt like I don't think Marinette has have ever had any trouble with making friends.
Yeah.
I think if anything, she's a lot more natural and charismatic in that department than Adrian is. So I don't really know
Hmm.
why she was kind of struggling on just like, you know, being normal and making friends. I
Yeah.
think if they leaned more into the fact that she's a lot more insecure because she feels like she has to sort of measure up to
Yeah.
how talented or how great Adrian is, then I think that episode would work. I don't think they
Yeah.
should have went it in. I don't think they should have went in very heavy on this is how I would react the episode. Sorry to like divert a little bit. I think if she could just introduce herself to Sublime normally, that's fine. And then as they become friends and she learns more about Sublime and the three of them hang out, like Adrian, Sublime, and Marinette, over time, Marinette can become a little bit more insecure. Maybe she might start taking up running, even though she doesn't really like running. um,
Hmm.
that sort of stuff. And then over time, she can just become more, more like obsessive, but not in a very like creepy, stalkerish way. And then the exact scene with the whole what's it called, where the prosthetic leg for Sublime broke, that could still happen. Like I
Yeah.
think the bulk of the episode, like the bulk of the episode is the problem. I think the setup is fine. The middle part, the conflict doesn't work so well, and the ending is also fine as well. Because I like the idea of Marinette accepting that, oh, I don't have to be a certain thing to be someone's friend. I don't have to like earn a friendship. I don't have to prove my worth, because
Hmm.
friendship shouldn't be based on that ground. But
Hmm.
they leaned so hard into the idea that like she just wants to be friends with Sublime rather than the fact that she wants to prove that she's one worthy of Adrian, because we know that's something she struggled with for the past
Yeah.
5 seasons. She's very insecure about that and still is insecure about that. So I
Yeah.
don't think it would be very abstract or abnormal for her to still be dealing with that conflict.
Hmm.
Um, because yeah, like she was fine with making friends with Zoe. She was fine with making friends with Kagami. She was fine with
Hmm.
making friends with whoever else is there. So I don't know why she would struggle with making friends with Marinette. If anything, I feel like people would naturally want to become Marinette's friends because she's pretty popular. So I don't really think that is a very believable insecurity for that
Hmm.
episode.
Yeah, like I think it's just like yeah, I think with, like you said, Marinette still struggles with like, because obviously, with Adrian, he was like popular, he was technically a celebrity because of his dad, like put him into that role, and Marinette is like, I'm just a normal girl, like because when you think about it, they're not the same in terms of like, social class, you know, um, and everything. So but yeah, I kind of feel like with her, like stalking her was like not the right move. And then like Sublime literally points it out to Adrian. It's like, oh, that's just my girlfriend. And he just treats it like it's normal. And I'm like, dude, that's not normal behavior. Like,
Yeah.
because Adrian's like, oh, she probably just wants to be friends. I'm like, dude, why are you okay with this behavior? It's not normal. Like, I because to me, I feel like Adrian needs to have a sit down with Marinette and tell her that this is not okay to be doing this to people. Like, so I think because when I watched it with Kevin and Chris, like all three of us were just like reacting so strongly to like Marinette's like antics, like, girl, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So it's like, um, and and we do get in a glimpse into the way Sublime's parents, and her mom is like way too strict. It's like, man, there's
Yeah.
always that one parent, right? There's always that one parent. Like I feel like this is a trend in Miraculous now. There's always that one parent that's toxic in some way. Um, but but yeah, like it's not. Of course, it's like, yeah, I do agree. It's kind of the worst because, like I said, it kind of shows her bad side. Like the side where it's like, you should have at least grown out of this type thing. So yeah, we'll put this into worse. I'm sorry if you love Sublimation for those who do like it, but we just don't because it's there's other better episodes. Okay. Let me go check. The next episode is Werepapas. Oh, this I gotta hear full on thoughts about Werepapas. Gee.
Funny enough, Where Papa's was the only one of the three episodes in season six where I didn't make a reaction to, but I did make a review on. I liked the episode. I
Hmm.
did, and I liked the use of flashbacks because I feel like we just MLB, like the writers are just so allergic to using flashbacks, and this is like the
Hmm.
very first episode where they've actually given us a flashback, you know? Um,
Hmm.
so I like that. And I feel like the episode, honestly, it started off really strong. But the
Hmm.
more I think about it, the more I'm like, one, I do feel like this felt like, yes, it's an Adrian-centered episode. It's about his grandparents. But I don't really think Adrian took a lead on that episode, if that makes sense. It felt like he was a
Yeah.
background character in his own conflict, which is
Yeah.
fine. That's okay. Like for some episodes, that's okay. And we're used to it by now. But it's like,
Hmm.
oh, like we're seeing more of Adrian's like family, his two grandparents or two pairs of grandparents, and like he's just barely there. He's just kind of letting things happen. Um, whilst Marinette is taking the lead on it. Even Natalie had more of a role in this episode, if I'm being
Yeah.
completely honest.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's the whole Senti being storyline, which honestly confuses me till this day because that storyline, that concept started off really strong, and now there's like so many plot holes, which I don't even want to get into because it genuinely like breaks my brain, and I can't remember. Like I remember when that episode came out, and people were like also confused about it because like one episode in season three states that Like if you destroy the object with the mark, the centibeam will also be destroyed. But now it kind of feels like the writers are bending their own rules just for the sake of moving the
Yeah.
plot forward by
Yeah.
saying, oh, it depends on the intention. But like, who cares? Like you're breaking it. There is no other intention other than breaking it. No?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree because it's like because we can just like I think probably when she did destroy it, to take out the Ultra Kuma, right? Or and stuff like I think he did disappear for a moment, I would say. And then when she used the Miraculous Ladybug to restore it, and then that's probably when he came back, I'm presuming. That's just my guess of how it was.
But would
Because
he have
I've
remembered?
huh?
Would he have remembered if that happened? Or is it like, oh, your life just resets so you don't remember? Like, because like we know that
Mm,
during the effects of a battle, the people who get affected, who just happen to get, caught in the crossfire, they do remember what happened. So if
hmm
Adrian was in that glass bubble thingy or whatever it was, and then temporarily got snapped out of existence, even if it was for like 30 seconds, surely he would have remembered it, right? Like, oh, I disappeared, I basically died, and now I'm back. Like, what happened, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I do agree, like the bending of the rules. I guess yeah, it's kind of a little bit weird. Like, I guess they want to make it dramatic because like Marinette was faced with a choice, as Ladybug, like, oh my gosh, I know I have to deakumatize this villain, but it's like, oh no, but I run the risk of killing Adrian by doing
Mm.
so. I guess it's just for dramatic effect. I would say, but yeah, the bending of the rules is kind of a little bit weird. Like, I wish, they explained, I wish they kind of showed it a little bit better. Like, I'm kind of like, at least put it into perspective, like inside the trophy thing, right? Like, at least to show if Adrian was like gone for a bit and then he came back. Like at least like explain that, then I'll be like, okay, okay, at least you explained it or showed it.
Mm.
But yeah, I kind of feel like maybe Adrian was more of like the driving force, because it is think of it as like I don't know if you know about this, like it kind of feels like Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. Um it's basically it's a April Fool's game that Sega made. Even though it has like Sonic is the driving force in this game, he's actually not fully the he's actually not the main character because we give all the other characters. I think it kind of feels like that, where it's like Adrian is the driving force because obviously you know, Adrian's maternal grandfather is pretty much a jerk with the way his attitude is. And he's like saying, oh yeah, he decides to approach the paternal grandparents of like, sign away your rights, and then Adrian will be staying with us. Like he didn't even give him a choice in the matter. And I kind of feel like, Adrian was more of the driving force, in terms of the plot
Yeah.
even though it's more centered around the grandparents, and obviously Natalie, like you said, Natalie had more of an active role in this episode. Um, but I kind of feel like it's kind of like that. Like even though this episode is supposed to be Adrian centric, it's like it's kind of more like um it's kind of more about the grandparents and the audience getting to know the grandparents as well. And Adrian's pretty much like a proxy because he's never even met his grandparents from both sides of the family because yeah. Yeah, way to go, Gabriel. Just shows how terrible of a parent you are. Like but yeah, I think like but man, his maternal grandfather is just ugh, he he he's very toxic person, and the fact that literally I think it makes a whole lot of sense when you look at the flashback in the beginning of this episode where it's like his mom is like, it's like, well, they're not really good people. And I'm like, I think it's very telling. It's probably more the dad that she wanted to avoid her dad, probably. Um, because just from his like behavior that we were shown, it's like, oh, no wonder Adrian's mom did not want him to meet his maternal grandparents when she say, gee,
Yeah, no, I completely understand as well. And I think because Emily was basically running out of time, she wanted the best people around Adrian, and she knew her parents aren't the best people to be around Adrian. Um, and yeah, like you said, it's mainly the dad, Emil, I think his name was. But
yeah,
people, I
Emil.
remember people when the episode came out, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, just seeing the what's it called? The comments and thoughts on the episode. People would say, oh, like, Millie is a victim. And yes, that's absolutely correct. Millie is a victim. But in a way, she also caused harm to Emily, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
silence and complicity is still sort of a form of abuse because you are enabling that abuse.
yeah,
It makes sense why Emily was like, they are not good people. Yeah, she might have
yeah,
been just purely talking about her father, but her mother didn't try at least to like stop
yeah.
that. And again, it's not victim blame or anything, but when you bring in a child into this world, you absolutely have to do everything you can to protect them, even if it's against your own husband or wife or whatever.
Yeah. Like I kind of like how you mentioned that um like Millie was technically enabling her husband. You know, like you
Mm,
said, she didn't even try to stand up for their daughters, you know, if their dad was being so harsh with them. Like she just like I think that one line that Emil said that I think it's like suffer in silence or something like that. I think he
mm.
says something like that. I'm just like, wow. I'm just like, this guy's a real piece of work. Like it's very telling that like he, of the way he treats his wife is very telling. You know, I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like this is a troublesome dude. Like, and I remember I think Smarty Pants is like in his video of his review of this episode, he's kind of like, it's like divorce. And I'm like, yes, please. like, like I literally agreed with him on that because I'm just like, yeah, I'm like, to me, it's very telling. Why did she like endure this for so long? It's like that it's just wild, right? That that Millie had to like deal with his like toxic behavior for that long. It's just mind-boggling.
It is, but I also like that they portrayed that because now that I love this episode of the podcast because like I have a objective review in that in a way because I haven't really thought about these episodes since it came out. But
Mhm.
it dawned on my mind when you literally just mentioned why would Millie endure all of that for so long. And it reminded me of, Emily and Gabriel's relationship. And yes, we were told and shown that he once upon a time was a really loving father and a loving person and was very happy and jolly. But somewhere in Emily's mind, when she fell sick and she saw Gabriel's behavior changing, she obviously must have known that okay, Gabriel is kind of a terrible person, like, or at least he's, going down the descent of becoming a terrible person. That's exactly why she left those like voicemails or video diaries thingy for Natalie to protect Adrian because
Mhm.
she knew she wouldn't be there to, to defend Adrian and to protect him, which kind of tells me like why why would you marry such a person like that? So I feel like it
Yeah.
really mirrors like I feel like the cycle of abuse, the cycle of I guess you could
Mhm.
say generational trauma or something,
Mhm.
kind of repeated in Emily's relationship as well. Sure,
Mhm.
again, it wasn't abusive to her, but he did end up becoming abusive in one way or another.
hmm Yeah, like I think it's also I think I know this happens in reality that like like if you faced like trauma or abuse from your childhood, you tend to gravitate towards someone who who does it to you because you're so used to it.
Mm,
So people don't realize that sometimes, like you said, I it's like a generational cycle, because like Emily and Amelie's father, obviously we know, just from just his dialogue, like I think they show it and portray it very well that it's like, okay, yeah. I was like, I can understand, why Emily did not want Adrian to meet his maternal grandparents, which is understandable because like I think they're showing that like um both the toxic person and the person enabling are just equally bad, you know, um if anything. And then but I also want to talk about his paternal grandparents. His paternal grandparents are like way nicer, at least.
mm.
Like, and it kind of makes you question why did Gabriel like cut off his parents? That's the weird part.
Honestly, and I feel like again, it's one of those things where the Miraculous Ladybug fandom has a tendency, like even though the episode doesn't imply it or show it, they will sort of like make their own theories, but then pass it off as an analysis. Like they would theorize certain things and be like, oh no, I implied it, but like no, you're just theorizing. There's a difference between that. And people were saying that, oh, when Gabriel became rich, he decided to cut them off because of his what's it called? His quest to save Emily. But we don't know that, nor was that shown in the episode. I mean, it's a okay theory, but it's like we can't really imply that and pass it
Hmm
off as an inference because we don't know that. All we know is that Gabriel was from a noble background. Emily's parents disapproved of Emily and Gabriel's relationship. He became a fashion designer, got rich, and moved to Paris, bought a mansion. Somewhere along the lines, met Audrey. So that's how they became rich in the first place.
hmm
Um, and then eventually just cut off his parents. We don't know why he cut off his parents, and we can't really infer the reason. It could just be a case of, oh, he was just being an asshole to his parents and forgot his roots. Because there are some people like that. When they get rich, they forget where they come from, and that could honestly
hmm
just be the simple answer. Sometimes not everything needs a very complicated or nuanced um
hmm
reasoning behind it. It could just be the case of Gabriel just genuinely forgot where he came from and just decided to cut off his parents who were very loving and
Yeah.
just awesome people. Or it could be the case where um he just became so consumed in his mission for Emily that he eventually just stopped, you know.
mm
Yeah, so
mm
I really don't know actually.
Yeah, because I hope at least we get some clarity and probably some flashbacks or something to hopefully explain a little bit. Because like I said, we can only just come up with like predictions, just predictions for now because we don't have like a full-on answer. But like you said, it could be as simple as like, oh, he's probably one of those people that once you become rich, you kind of just cut off like your humble roots, you know, um, which is really sad because his parents are at least like nice, you know, um, and stuff. So, and I think what's interesting is that like but because I think what's also interesting is that like Marinette's like, oh, I'll just pretend I'm like wait staff or something just so I can be in the room because obviously, this was a request by, Emil himself that like, no, it should only just be family, and the only ones allowed in the room is other than the family is the wait staff, you know. And I kind of like when when they were like talking about who would get custody of Adrian, you could clearly see Gorilla is like so concerned. You know, like he takes a glance at Natalie and she's just like very stern and trying to keep it together. It's like, oh no. Like it kind of feels like they both feel powerless. You know, like they can't really do anything because it's like we're we are just basically Gabriel and Emily's like, and employees, right? I would,
Yeah.
because that's literally what Emil said. Like, because Adrian says, I live with Natalie. And it's like, she's an employee, not family. I'm just like, snap, dude. I'm like, you don't have to rub it in that way. But, but obviously, like, I just love every time I see Gorilla. Like, he's just softened up so much and I love it. Um, and I think what's interesting that I think when this episode first came out, people were like, why did Marinette have to like say what Adrian was feeling? He could say it himself. I'm like, well, you got to remember, Adrian was like always had to repress. Like he couldn't really say what he wanted because every time he did to his dad always dismissed him, you know? And Marinette had to be the one to say it because like obviously Adrian just didn't have the courage to say it. And a lot of people kind of took it as like, why is she like saying it for him? It's like, well, you got to keep in mind, Adrian grew up in an environment where he didn't have a say in what he wanted, if you kind of know what I mean, G.
Yeah. No, yeah, I completely understand. Honestly, I think that was the least like that part was I didn't mind that part, honestly. I feel like people were concerned, like you said, were like, oh, why did Marinette have to speak for him? I didn't see it as that. I just felt like I can see why people would see it as that, but I honestly took no issue to it at all.
Hmm. Yeah, like because I kind of feel like it's like, well, remember, Adrian now has like this more freedom to get out of the house. Remember, like Gabriel always tried to keep him in the house as much as he can. Obviously there were times Adrian was allowed to go out, but like it was so still limiting for him, and so that's why I'm kind of like I think that's why Marinette had to stand up and say something because she kind of feels like Adrian grew up in this type of environment where he didn't really have much of a say, you know. Um and I kind of like how she just like opens the door and she kind of just breaks conventions and just brings Natalie in.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this episode compelling because she's like Marinette is willing to break convention, because obviously this was only supposed to be a private thing between family, but she's like then she kind of tells Natalie that like, you know, and I kind of like how she says to Natalie that like I'm only just Adrian's girlfriend, I can't stop his grandparents from like taking custody, but you're an adult, and she said Adrian looks up to you as a mother because you've been taking care of him, you know. And then obviously, Adrian like but Natalie literally like kind of debates like, but he's not my son though, you know. And then obviously, at least like the grandparents now are kind of like, oh, but the thing is he sees you as his mom, you know. And I kind of like how Millie finally says that like it's like you're in more need of a mother than a crest, like even though Adrian is technically what nobility, from his mom's side, I guess. Are they like nobility, G?
Yeah, they are aristocrats. I wouldn't say they are like kings or queens, but it's really weird because it's set in 2015, so it's like, okay, what exactly are you? Because like they're originally from England, so you're not, are you a duchess or you were like what are you? But I'm just gonna say they're aristocrats.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what I'm thinking too. Um, And so I think, like would you say maybe this episode was like mid?
Yeah,
Like it's not
honestly,
bad or
yeah.
any it's not bad, we kind of at least get to see more of like Adrian's like side of the family, from his grandparents. So it's like decent, because obviously this episode's supposed to be more like learning more about Adrian's family.
Mm.
hmm Okay. Let's see. The next episode. Oh, yes. The infamous Daddy Cop episode where you kind of like cringe at the, the title of this episode. But what are your thoughts on Daddy Cop?
Honestly, I'm gonna put it in awesome. I think
Oh.
Daddycop is probably one of my personal faves of the episode of season 6. I really really like that episode. I know a lot of people are like, the episode is just kind of there, but personally, I absolutely love that episode. I don't know if it's because of the message or the themes really hit home, and I feel like those themes were very important to talk about, and I don't see those themes being talked about enough in a lot of kids shows. That's the only
hmm
reason why I think it's like a really great episode. So first of all, I think what makes the episode not, in the godly category is I feel like the episode kind of treats uh Sabrina's character, and I would see it as like a soft retcon or soft reboot to Sabrina's character. And I think Smarty Pants also mentioned this as well in one of his videos on Sabrina, because it tries to make you like it kind of backtracks in a way. It pedals back, and it tells you that Sabrina was also a victim of Chloe's bullying, which yes, to an extent she was, but
hmm
it also erases the fact that she was an enabler,
Yeah.
and if not at some points worse than Chloe.
hmm
So it's like I get why they did that, because the redemption episode in season 5 was just not that good. So I feel like Daddy Cop was a better attempt at that, and that's why I really like it, because I feel like Sabrina did earn her redemption in this episode.
hmm
If this was her only redemption episode, then I think it would be fine. Or if she had a couple more episodes where she generally just had to like work for the courage and the trust of her classmates, then that's fine. Um, but also I really love the idea of like Marinette learning that, hey, yes, I just got into this relationship. As anyone would, they would be really excited and just want to spend time with that person. But don't forget about your friends. It's so easy for people to get so wrapped up in their like romantic relationships that
hmm
they forget to spend time and balance their time with their friends.
Yeah.
Because it was funny, because I like how the episode doesn't shy away from showing you that Marinette was kind of sneaky by, in that one scene where she's like, girls, I want to invite somebody that I would usually not invite. And she deliberately doesn't tell them
Yeah.
like it's Adrian. And I caught up on that, because I was like, oh, like she deliberately omitted his name. And like omitting somebody's name or omitting a piece of information is still lying. So she
Yeah.
technically did lie to her friends. And I like how they like the episode intentionally calls Marinette out on it, and it doesn't like sugarcoat it, like, yeah, like you were sneaky and you tried to invite Adrian to your girls' night without actually honestly asking for your friend's opinion.
hmm
And I really like that. And also the fact that it was Adrian to tell her, like, hey, like, we don't have to celebrate whatever you want to celebrate tonight. There are like so many more opportunities to do that. But I don't want to be the one to like you get in the way of your friends, get in the way of your alone time with your friends. And it was such a green flag thing to do. It was so refreshing to see, because
hmm
a lot of guys, at least guys portrayed in media and guys that I know in real life, they aren't like that. Everyone's so
Yeah.
like possessive and like, oh no, I want to hang out with you. Like, go hang out with that person another day. But Adrian was like so chill about it. And he was like, I can
hmm
hang out with you tomorrow. Today is for you and your friends. That's okay. And Marinette initially felt very rejected by it. And honestly, I
Hmm.
would too if I was in her shoes. Like, I feel like that's a
Yeah.
very human and natural response. She
Yeah.
felt like he didn't want to hang out with her, or he was rejecting her. But if anything, he was just looking out for her. And the part that I love the most about it is he said no once, and then when she tried convincing him again, he was like, I am not changing my mind on this. Like, my answer is still
Hmm.
the same as before.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. And I think it's very important for your, well, not just a romantic partner, for your friends or the relationships you have, the relationship with people you have, for them to tell you and to sort of put their foot down when they need to. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes you have to be harsh and firm with the people you care about because they need it. And we know Marinette is so goddamn stubborn.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like Adrian showed such a green flag in this episode. I do agree with you. Like I kind of like how you mentioned that, yeah, like a lot of guys in real life are not like this. Like you said, a lot of guys would be like possessive of their partner and kind of like isolating them from like their friends and family, because
Mhm.
there are guys that are like that, or girls, because it can happen either way, no matter what gender. But yeah, Adrian just setting those boundaries, I think, was great, because like, and I kind of like also that Marinette comes to this realization at the end, where you know, like literally like she like once Sabrina apologized to the girls for the way that she like you know that she like bullied all of them along with Chloe, and obviously took accountability, and then Marinette kind of says her piece of like, yeah, like I want to apologize solidly that I've been like so into my relationship that I tend to forget, you know that friend that hanging out with friends is also important too. Um, and I kind of like how she comes to that realization. And that's literally what Adrian was trying to teach her in this episode too, that like you need to balance out between your relationship, like your romantic relationship with your partner and your friends. Because that I think it's an important lesson that people tend to forget, because like when you first get into a relationship you're so invested in it. You know what they like to call it, like the honeymoon phase, if you know the term, the honeymoon
Yeah.
phase, where it's like once you get together with that person that you've been like in love with, you tend to spend all of your time with them, and then sometimes you tend to forget your friends, and your friendships get pushed to the background because of it. And and I think this episode is very important for people like other than kids. Like I think adults should be like watching this episode to say, hey, you need to learn to balance your relationships. You can't just be spending all your time
Mm.
um with just in your romantic relationship, because if you do that you tend to, like I said, you tend to push your friendships into the background, because you're, like I said, you're in this honeymoon phase, so this episode was very integral, where like Adrian like was teaching Marinette like a hard lesson, that like it's like I get it, you want to spend time with me, but you know, and I kind of like, Adrian's like telling her you should spend time with your girlfriends. There's nothing wrong with that, and I just applauded when I saw this episode. It was like Adrian, green flag. Well done. Um, and I think, people tend to like, I know people were like criticizing this episode when it first came out but I tell people, the most important thing is that Sabrina took accountability for her actions. I feel like
Mm.
people like, well, they don't realize that she took accountability, like she's well aware she's not innocent. Like she's well aware. She knows she was just as bad as Chloe. It's going back to the Werepapas, right? When we were talking about Agent's maternal grandparents. Like obviously, Emil was the toxic person, but Millie didn't do anything and she was just enabling. It's the same thing with like Chloe and Sabrina. Even though Chloe was the toxic person, Sabrina was enabling the behavior and wasn't standing up for anybody to say anything. Um, so I think I think with what they did, I think, it just shows that Sabrina took accountability. And I feel like people brush that over. Like they're like, and I tell people she took accountability and that's what's important, because like they're like, sure, she apologized, but like I said, she took accountability. Like she knew she wasn't as innocent. She did bad things just like Chloe. So I think that's the important lesson. If you're going to apologize, at least be self-aware and take accountability for your actions because that really comes a long way, if you know what I mean. Like
Mm,
taking accountability for your actions. Because once you do that, that shows that you are genuinely sorry. It's not just like it and it doesn't come off as like, oh, you're not really sorry, you're just doing it out of guilt. But it's like, no, she took accountability. She was aware, that she did terrible things to them too.
yeah. No, I completely agree with everything you've said.
Hmm. But I agree, yeah. I loved her transformation too in this episode. I was like, oh yeah. Um, like I kind of like how her transformation kind of utilizes her love for soccer or football. And but yeah, I'll definitely put it in awesome for this episode. Um, all right, let's go see. The next episode is Revelator. Ooh, I want to know your thoughts on Revelator.
Revelator was um, that's going in godly. No
Yeah,
debate about that. Um, where is Revelator in this? Oh, the that one. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Revelator was such a good episode. I loved, and I think it's episode 11. So it's like the sweet spot in season six, like kind of midway. Um, I love the themes attached to this episode, and I always love an Alias as their centered episode, so that was a bonus.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember how it started. Okay, the way it started was a bit random. The flashback of them learning, of the Ladybug and Cat Noir, teaching the other heroes how to like, stay transformed and use their
Hmm.
powers multiple times. I feel like that could have been put in a earlier episode or maybe like Climatiqueen or something like that. I felt like it was really, really random to put that in that episode, but whatever. Um, I absolutely love the idea where like we see the first sort of hit on the consequences of Marinette's actions. And I love how the first person who actually witnessed that was Alia, because Alia again represents a beacon of truth in the Miraculous Ladybug universe. She's the one that stands for truth, who is completely honest with herself, despite the fact that her miraculous sort of embodies the opposite of what she stands for. Um, which we can go on. We can go on and talk about that, and probably in a separate um video about how the holders really embody their miraculouses, or how some of them might not embody their miraculouses at first glance. Who knows? But I love how when Marinette's lie was brought out into the open, it wasn't a case of they were treating it as, oh, okay, we see that Marinette is wrong, but we're gonna like brush it under the rug. I like how Alia got angry, and I know a lot of people kind of gave Alia a lot of, heat for that, but honestly, I think it was a valid reaction, and it was a very much needed reaction
Hmm.
because, like, it's a huge thing that she lied about. She didn't just
Hmm.
lie to Adrian, she lied to Cat Noir, who, yes, is the same person, but she doesn't know that. And she
Hmm.
protected a mass terrorist. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of a huge deal. And I love the themes of like I love how season six episodes have been written so far about how like there's like always a mini plot that's mirroring the overarching plot of the entire season. So like in Revelator, it's Vincent that's making up lies about Marinette,
Hmm.
which is funny because she didn't quite like that, like and Vincent himself, he's a terrible person. He's a grown man basically harassing teenagers and
Hmm.
taking truths and twisting them to his liking to perpetuate a sort of image of Marinette, and
Yeah.
she didn't quite like that. But how is that any different to what Marinette did in terms of
Yeah.
protecting Gabriel and twisting the truth about Gabriel? Yes, she's
Yeah.
not directly harassing anybody, but in a way, she thinks she's protecting Adrian, but it's actually making things a lot worse. She's actually aiding or enabling Adrian's confusion about his feelings
Ye-
towards his father. And it's
Yeah.
like the things I love the idea of how like what you intend to do and what you intend to avoid, sometimes the way you go about it ends up doing the very same thing you want to avoid. Marinette wanted to
Hmm.
protect Adrian, but in by doing what she did, she's actually causing more harm than good, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And this was just all encapsulated so well when Alia was like, you don't have the right to, formulate whatever truth or whatever lie you want. Truth is essential to somebody, no matter how harmful that truth is. And now that I know this, I have to lie to Adrian, and Adrian is my friend. And I think that's something a lot of people forget because everyone
Yeah.
was so quick to just jump on Alia and be like, oh, Alia is a terrible friend. But Alia is just as much as Adrian's friend as she is Marinette's friend. Yeah, she's closer to
Yeah.
Marinette, but in a way, she's defending Adrian. And I'm surprised that a lot of people didn't quite realize that Alia was defending Adrian. Like, yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
mean she's against Marinette or she's like, Marinette's enemy. People think so black and white, like because I'm calling you out as my friend, it means I hate you. I'm calling you out because I love you. And
Yeah.
that's just something I've always loved about Alia's character, and I think it really shone a lot in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Because here's the thing. A true friend will call you out on actions. You know, they will call you out even if you don't want them to, because they really care about you and they love you so much. And I agree with you. Yeah, her feelings are very justified because she's like, not only did you lie to me, you especially lied to Adrian of all people, because obviously we've seen the what ifs if Adrian found out, right? We've seen
Mm.
episodes if Adrian never found out that his father was Hawkmoth. Always bad, bad, always turns out terribly. So it's like, um, yeah, and like you said, like Marinette has good intentions. It's not anything malicious, but what she's doing is technically wrong because I agree with I was like on Alia's side on this, that like what gives you the right to like hide this, especially from Adrian, because Adrian of all people deserves to know the truth. And the audience agrees with Alia, for the most part, that like we're like, Marinette, we love you, girl, but at the same time, hiding this truth from Adrian is, like you said, it's gonna make it worse, because in a way, like you said, Marinette is technically enabling Adrian about his confusion about his father,
Mm.
which is not okay. Yeah, it really isn't. Um, so I think so yeah, that's why it's a godly episode. And like I said, it's like a good analogy, you could say. Like you said, you compared, with what was his name? Vincent,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, Vincent. Vincent obviously was doing a terrible thing because he was doing it for clout, and Alia was well aware. But Marinette was also doing something that's just as bad as what Vincent was doing. So I kind of like the parallels between that. And I think that was a great way to like showcase the similarities of what Marinette is doing, because obviously she's still trying to keep this secret. And like I said, Marinette, bad idea. You could have just told Adrian, but now it's like eating away at you, in other episodes. Um, but yeah, this episode was really good. And and I kind of like also that like Adrian really points out that like, man, I just wish people would just treat me, I just wish I had a normal life, and not have people always going up to me just because I have a famous father. It's like, that's the most relatable thing, you know, um, and and stuff. So yeah, definitely a godly episode. Revelator was godly. Ooh, okay. Let's talk about Climatiqueen.
Okay, Climatiqueen. Okay, I am gonna put Climatiqueen in. I'm debating between awesome and godly because I remember really liking the episode, but I also
Hmm.
remember it not like it's a strong episode. It really is a strong episode, but it's definitely not as strong as Revelator. So I don't know if I would put it in godly. I might change my mind later on once we fully like look over the list. But for now, let's put it in awesome.
Okay. Awesome it is.
So I can see why Climatiqueen would be the first episode of season 6. I think it works as a how I see Climatiqueen. I see Climatiqueen in Illustrator. You know how like in season 4 we had Truth and Lies. So one of them was Marinette's episode and the other one was the parallel episode, which was Adrian's episode. That's how I see Illustrator and Climatiqueen because Illustrator works as a really good soft reboot and like introduction to season 6, but so does Climatiqueen because Climatiqueen takes place a few weeks after Gabriel's funeral or something, and we see that Adrian's still grieving. He's still a little bit like down. Now he's like starting to think about what he wants to do with his life now that his father has no control. So like naturally that makes a good introduction, but also Illustrator as well makes a good introduction. So I'm gonna treat Illustrator and Climatiqueen as parallel versions of each other. One is just a Marinette centered one, and the other one is an Adrian one. I digress though. Climatiqueen was a great episode. I think it was one where I really felt like the writers have sort of now finally understood that you can have an Adrian-centered conflict and you can still have Marinette there and helping him without it being a damsel in distress sort of case. Because it's Adrian that's like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And it's
Hmm.
Marinette, and Marinette's not telling him what to do, or Marinette's not deciding for him, or sort of, dragging him and he's like not making any choices. She's literally just there to support him and see what he likes and what he doesn't like. So they try out a bunch of different things. He doesn't really like any of them. And she's like, we have all the time in the world to figure it out. And we really do.
Hmm.
We really do. So I really I like that. And I feel like this is more of a inference and implication rather than something that's outright stated in the episode. I absolutely love the idea of how the first thing that Adrian starts thinking of, like after his father's death, is his career and what he wants to do for himself, which most people who have just lost a parent, regardless of how old you are, I don't think that would be their first thought. I think most of the time people will still be like, oh, how can I live without this person or etc. But Adrian, he seems to have sort of, I don't think we've seen that stage. I mean, we saw glimpses of it in the London special, but his first instinct is, okay, I have to crack down on what I want to be. And I feel like to me, I could sort of imply that it's sort of like I guess, a coping mechanism to kind of distract him from his feelings about his father.
Hmm.
Perhaps it's never really stated in the episode. It's more of a theory on my part, but I wouldn't be opposed to that idea at all. And I think honestly the weakest part of this episode was the Akuma villain. I feel like that didn't really matter to me. Um, and I think that's okay because most of the time, the people that get akumatized aren't really the interesting part or the focal point of this episode. I feel like they've stopped being the focal points of episodes since like maybe season four. Like sometimes some
Hmm.
people get akumatized, but it's like we don't really know that person or we don't really care. It's like a different conflict going on in the background. So like I
Yeah.
don't really care for Aurore's conflict. I feel like it's just a recycled version of
Yeah.
the season one. And I think why they would have put this as the episode one of season six is like it's a callback and a like a 10-year sort of not memorial, but I don't know what word I'm looking for, but like a 10-year like anniversary of stormy weather, like just starting
Yeah.
again back to where we began
Hmm.
with stormy weather, a nice callback. So yeah, and I think this was the episode that kickstarted the whole Augley is Lila theory because that's when we get introduced to Augley for the first time ever.
Yeah.
But overall, the episode was really great. I really enjoyed this episode, and I love the ending to it. And I think it served well to showing how Adrian picked up running, which
Hmm.
is really interesting.
Yeah, like, I really love how like Marinette's like, oh, let's have you try some stuff at school and see if you like it. Obviously they were all like fails, and then you see like Aurora just like taking photos of them, and I'm just like, um, because I think she was trying to win a book or something like that. Yeah, win a book or something like that in Chloe's contest or something. Um, but but yeah, like obviously, this episode is kind of like, like I said, it's more of a callback to stormy weather,
Mm.
so uh, but yeah, like I kind of like how this episode also really it really brings up the Aglae's Lila theory, which like I said, my very good buddy Chris has been like hammering it home, and I said, yeah, I could definitely see it because like in other episodes they're like hinting at this, you know. But overall, yeah, it's like it's a nice callback. Like you said, it's not as good as Revelator, but it's a good callback type of episode. Um, so I think, yeah, for sure. Okay, wait, let me see. It's El Toro de Piedra is next. Okay,
Okay.
wait,
Uh,
where? I think it's this
it's
one right
that
here.
one. Yeah, yeah. um, See, I'm just trying to think back to it because like it's been so long. I think this was like the first half of 2025, the episodes that we've talked about so far. Um, okay. What I loved about this episode is that the episode really focuses on Ivan, and honestly, a lot of the people in Marinette's class, I, I don't care for. Like Sabrina, well, Sabrina's fine now. Ivan, Milen, to an extent, Julika as well. Like I just Mark and Nathaniel, all of those people, like they're just kind of there, you know. But I feel like El Toro de Piedra was such a great episode in sort of making you care for a character that
Mhm.
you wouldn't, or most people don't usually care about. Like I have yet to come across an Ivan stan, and I'm not even saying that in a mean way. It's just like you don't really ironically come across people who are like, oh, I stand Ivan. You might find people who stand Milen, Mark, Nathaniel, Julika, but I feel like Ivan's just kind of one of those people that exists, but
Mhm.
that's about it. Um, so I think that was a really good way of reintroducing us to the character of Ivan without any weird like retcon. But if anything, I feel like the episode aligns perfectly with what we already know about Ivan and what we've seen from him in season one. Because I feel like the only episode we know about Ivan is the origins episode because he was the first person to get akumatized, and we learn he has
Mhm.
anger issues, and we learn he's quite sensitive and struggles with voicing his emotions. And I feel like this episode tied it really well and gave us extra backstory that makes sense with what we already know. So it's the fact that
Mhm.
his dad is kind of abusive and he's a criminal and his dad is about to uh I guess be on probation or parole or something like that.
Yeah.
But he's planning on like going back to a life of crime and he's trying to drag Ivan into it, which is why Ivan is always so angry and he's scared of turning into someone like his father. That all
Mhm.
works really, really well. So I like that, and I like how that again it's the perfect balance, and I think the writers have really nailed the formula now. Took them long enough, but still. Um, where like Ivan's storyline mirrors Adrian's storyline, and it's like not one
Yeah.
storyline is more important than the other. Each one deserves its importance. Each one deserves the light being shed on it. Ivan is struggling with his feelings about his father, and that mirrors how Adrian was struggling about his feelings about his father. I think this is the episode where Adrian finds the froggy thing, the
Hmm.
popcorn thing, and
Yeah.
starts, talking about it. And it's like, yeah, this makes sense as to why it directly mirrors what Ivan is struggling with. And
Yeah.
I really like that. And also the equipment battle just it was there, it was fine. Um, but I feel my favorite part of the episode was when hmm, the scene where Ivan's in the sewers and he's about to give up his miraculous, and Ladybug was like, "But you have changed. You knew when to call for help," and I feel like that was very important because
Hmm.
if it was Ivan from season one, he would have just like crashed out and gotten akumatized or whatever. But the fact that he called for Ladybug's help, confided in her when that's something that's so difficult to do, shows how
Yeah.
much he's grown. And asking for help doesn't make you weak. If anything, it shows a sign of strength.
Yeah.
So that was great. And obviously, this episode introduced us to the whole secret council thingy, which was a massive plot twist in my mind. I didn't see that coming at all. I was like, oh, okay, so we're going deeper with the villains. Like we've got the whole secret society thing. That's
Hmm.
interesting. But yeah, I would put this episode as awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Like I kind of like how you said that like Ivan Ivan's relationship with his father really mirrors that of Adrian, and Adrian really starts questioning it more about like because obviously in a later episode we're going to talk about, Adrian does have conflicting feelings about his dad, you know, just like how Ivan has conflicting feelings about his dad. So I think it's like a very great parallel that they did. And I think if I recall, this is also like the first time that they actually like during like a fight scene when they're fighting an akumatized villain, it's like a music montage, and I'm like, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Like that took me by surprise because we're so used to, their banter with the villain, but this one it was just like because obviously they were like preparing a concert for like Miss Bustier, or Mayor Bustier now because she's a mayor. But that really took me by surprise. And I was just like, whoa. Like, this is intriguing that they did this akumatized fight in this episode in particular and have it just be a music montage while Julika is like performing. That was like a first, from what I can recall. I don't remember them ever doing any like music montage fight scene, when they're fighting an akumatized villain like this. So this is like a first for me too.
Yeah, I like that because it really changes this, it's not the status quo, but it changes like the formula. Like we don't always have to see the same, not repetitive, but same sort of formula for, oh, Ladybug fights sort of Akuma, Cat Noir gets distracted or whatever, and then she summons her lucky charm and then boom, save the day. I like the idea of like we don't really care about the fight, and I don't think we should. Sometimes the fight is the least important part about the episode, and that's okay.
Mhm.
It's not always, it doesn't always have to be the I guess the best part of the episode. And it was very interesting. It was very refreshing to see that, oh, this fight is basically a montage and it's like it mirrors Julika's song. I don't really know what her song was about. I haven't really sat down and like looked over the lyrics properly.
Yeah.
I said I would, but like it slipped my mind. But I'm assuming like the lyrics tied into like the overall theme of season six because they have been going, very in line with the story and the message they've been trying to portray over the course of the season.
Hmm. Yeah, so like it definitely caught me by surprise. For to have a music montage for during a fight scene, and then it's like it goes back and forth, and I think they do that so well. you know, um, because like you said, sometimes in some episodes, sometimes the fight scene is not important, because there's obviously the driving plot in this is literally with Ivan and his dad. And then, of course, obviously a little bit of how it mirrors like Adrian and his dad and his feelings about his dad or conflicting feelings with his dad, pretty much.
Mm.
Um, like, would you put this in awesome or godly? I'm very curious.
I I'm gonna put it in. Are we doing it based off sub? Okay, because I don't know. Like, I feel like I have to like. I definitely know which episodes I'm 100% putting godly. So I just don't know if it matches those like caliber of the episodes. For now, I'll put it in awesome, and if I change my mind, we can switch it to godly.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking like awesome, from my perspective.
I feel like the only thing that's separating the episodes so far that we have put in awesome from episodes that we've put in godly and will put in godly is probably like the episodes that we'll put in godly, everything was like top tier, like the writing, the
Hmm.
animation, the fight scenes, the voice acting, the themes attached to it. Whereas with awesome, it's like those things were there, but just I guess not as strong as the godly ones. So that's why I'm gonna put it in El Toro De Piedra. However, I do think the like El Toro De Piedra did kickstart like the banger episodes we've got from season 6. Like I do vividly remember we got El Toro De Piedra um at the end of like July or something like that, or May or something. I don't remember, or
Hmm.
April. Then we went on a bit of a hiatus and then we like started getting like, the other episodes and it was like, oh, it's been banger after banger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put it in awesome for now.
Okay. And then the next episode is The Ruler.
Ooh, okay.
I think The Ruler is this one because this one kind of focuses on like Nathaniel.
yes.
Um, yeah.
So the ruler, a lot of people really love the ruler. And I'm not to say that I didn't love it. I actually did quite enjoy the ruler, but it kind of shocked me that like people absolutely loved it to the point where like I was like, oh, I don't really understand. I mean, opinions will be opinions, of course. I think the
Hmm.
episode The Ruler was a great ruler. I think I loved the message of it and I think it was very important to talk about. Obviously, it was obviously you can't outright state what the message was and I think the writers were very smart in sort of finding a way to tell you that message without outrightly telling you what that message was. So the whole conflict is Nathaniel wants to draw his comic book thingy, but his mom thinks that comic book art is an unconventional way of art, and so he has to adhere to her expectations and her standards or whatever, which is basically an allegory for homophobia. And I think that
Yeah.
was a really smart allegory. I think it wasn't too like, when like some metaphors are just so like metaphorical, like you could tell the writers are just being forceful with the metaphors. This one
Yeah.
was like subtle and just, like it wasn't hitting you over the head with it and trying to tell you like, oh, acknowledge this like smart metaphor. It just let it breathe. And I really liked that. But
Yeah.
honestly, Nathaniel and to an extent Mark are just characters that I've never found interesting. So I think that's why I probably didn't enjoy the episode as much as like the whole fandom did. Um, and it was a much more, calmer and peaceful episode, which we obviously need. We don't need
Hmm.
episodes that are so action-packed or so emotionally filled, or episodes that have you hanging at the edge of your seat. Sometimes we need like episodes that just let you breathe, but that
Hmm.
doesn't mean they're less important episodes. This was a very much character-driven episode, and I enjoyed it. And I like even Marinette's like silly subplot of her having a cold. I like that as well. I'm gonna put it in awesome.
Okay. Here it is. Yeah, yeah, I think this is also a solid episode, like I kind of just laughed. Like every time like her sneeze, I was just like, obviously it's overly exaggerated, and they're like, is that an elephant? Like we were like, is that an elephant? And it's funny because Adrian thinks like Adrian's way of thinking is hilarious at times because he decides, oh, does she think I'm stinky? He decides to put like 3 bottles of like perfume or cologne on himself, and It's like, why'd you do that? And it's like, oh, you've been like avoiding me. And she's like, no, it's because I'm sick, you know. And then I think that little subplot was hilarious because like Adrian is just so dense. You know, so
It's so funny to me because it's like, Adrian, you have a motherly figure that you could basically ask anything. My first instinct would be like, hey Natalie, what do I do if I think I'm if I if I think I stink? And obviously she would just say, oh, just wear a bit of cologne, put some deodorant on, change your clothes, like regulate the amount of sweat you emit or whatever, not down like 3 bottles of perfume all on you.
yeah, that subplot was just funny though. Um and and I think a lot of people, I think there's like a meme about like Nathaniel's dad. It's like, how come he looks like that dude from Megamind? And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I can't unsee it anymore. I forgot his name. But he kind of does look like that dude from Megamind. So, um, but yeah, I think I think it's like a very another solid episode. Like you said, like Nathaniel's mom not really approving of his like art, doing comics and stuff. And like you said, it's pretty much a metaphor, you know, for what they're actually trying to tell you. And it's like, yeah, and I kind of like that they do that because they're not trying to put it in your face, if you know what I mean. Like you said, they're not trying to put it in your face about it. They just try to do it like subtly so it doesn't, come off as like, oh, people are like, because I think doing it subtly, it still gets the message across. And I think they do a good job of doing that for this
Mm,
episode.
yes, I agree.
Ooh, next one's Mr. Agreste. Ooh, this one.
Godly, 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 godly. Best episode of the season. I really don't think they could top it. And if they do, I'd be very impressed.
I'm trying to see wait,
It's
is it?
the one with Adrian and Luca, so the third one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there we go. The funny thing about this tier maker list is that they pick the most random screenshots. So I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, which one's which?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Agreste was I I think okay. The funny thing about Mr. Agreste that makes it hit so much harder is the fact that we had such a long hiatus
Hmm.
in summer and then they return with a banger. Like
Hmm.
this was a banger. Everything about this was so top tier. The flashback, okay, going straight into whole in Marinette's guilt and how she's slowly cracking under pressure. Great, love it. I don't remember if this is like a little bit after Revelator or if it is before Revelator. I think it's just a little bit after, right? Because Revelator was episode 11, and I think Mr. Agreste was episode 13. Maybe doesn't really matter. But that was that. And what else was it really great? Um, Adrian questioning his feelings about his father, and you could tell it's something that's been weighing on his mind since Ladybug told him what happened in the London special.
Hmm.
Like I can't possibly like I'm missing some piece of the puzzle. I'm not connecting the dots that everyone else is connected. I'm not seeing the picture that everybody else is seeing. There has to be something that's going on. And in a way, I feel like this episode really depicts what it feels like to be gaslit because gaslighting is
Yeah.
a form of manipulation. And I'm not saying
Hmm.
Marinette manipulated Adrian, but she sort of did
Yeah.
unintentionally. Natalie as well. Um, so it's like he's going crazy just trying to put two and two together and be like, how can the dad that was popcorn and became so cold-hearted to me and treated me and made me miserable for most of my adolescent life, so far at least, how could he possibly be a hero? There's something I must be missing. And it's I love that. And then they found a way to bring in Luca because I do remember thinking like, oh, when like the trailer came out or like the synopsis of the episode came out and people were like, Luca's gonna be in this episode, I was like, why? I genuinely didn't figure I genuinely couldn't understand how they would fit Luca into it without like overcrowding it. Because I think the episode is strong enough with just the Adrian and Marinette conflict. I think that's fine. But then they
Mm-hmm.
honestly found a way to make Luca feel very, very important in this episode without it feeling
Mm-hmm.
overcrowded. And we're like, oh, Luca has something on his mind that we don't know. Luca
Mm-hmm.
knows something that we don't know that Marinette doesn't know. And it's like, oh my gosh. And the way he freaked out when
Mm-hmm.
Marinette confessed to him, and then we learn that he confessed to Marinette that he still loves her, but then he
Mm-hmm.
reversed time, and it's like that. Like everything was just like hit after hit after hit. I feel like this episode did
Mm-hmm.
not let you breathe in a good way. In a good way. Like I was literally like scene after scene, I was holding my breath. I was like, what the heck did I watch? And it's so funny because I was just like, wow, like everyone shown in this episode. Everyone was important in this episode. Natalie was important to an extent, even though I didn't quite like the role she played. I didn't understand why she was being so like mean to Marinette, even though she was very adamant at first to go to jail, and now she doesn't want to go to jail anymore, and she's
Mm-hmm.
threatening Marinette. How Marinette is genuinely feeling the pressure of lying to Adrian, because it's not
Mm-hmm.
like a little white lie. It's genuinely like a huge secret, and like seeing the person you care about basically being gaslit and like having this whole thing, this burden on your shoulders, yeah, it's gonna hurt. Because studies show that when you are with someone and you genuinely love them, you start to take on their patterns. You in a way become like intertwined both physically and emotionally. So you start to feel their energy rub off on you. So it makes sense
Mm-hmm.
when I was, cracking under pressure. And when she goes to visit Luca, you could tell she was so much under pressure because like you could just FaceTime him. You didn't have to fly all the way to Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Luca with the secret girlfriend thing was just kind of like, eh. That was my least favorite part of the episode. I didn't really care about the whole secret girlfriend, which obviously I'm gonna take a wild guess and predict that they're eventually gonna become a real couple because it's just such standard rom-com um with the fake dating trope. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just everything about this episode was great, down to the whole voice acting, even the cinematography, because I don't usually zone in on, the camera work. That's not my strength. But when it's there, and I have to mention it. I absolutely love this episode. It was just I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, like I think it's also very telling that like when the akumatized villain becomes like a really tall like Gabriel statue, like literally as soon as like he hears the voice from the villain, you can see Adrian is like traumatized. Like his
Mm,
face, like he couldn't even move. And then Plague's like telling him, man, you gotta move, even though he should, but obviously seeing that the akumatized villain take on the guise of his father as a statue is like, oh my gosh, like you could clearly tell his father's actions really traumatized him, you know. And I think they showcase that very well in this episode. Um, so I think, and obviously you can clearly see even when he became Cat Noir, he literally apologized to Ladybug that like, I'm so sorry, my game was so off today, you know. And then she's like, it's okay, that's why we work together, but I kind of like just like just showing that how his father really affected him. It traumatized him, you know, and
mm,
and I kind of like that they show that because obviously it's like, um, Adrian's been through a lot, living under his father. having such a controlling father who like creates an entire schedule for him without him being able to have some breathing room to like relax, and then his father decided to send him away to London, and being separated from Marinette. So all of that really culminates in this episode. And I'm really glad they show it like that. And and I think, like you said, I think they incorporated Luca pretty well where it doesn't like you said, where it doesn't feel like it's overcrowding or anything. Um, but it makes me wonder, like, I get where Marinette's coming from because she is like cracking under pressure. Like we are clearly seeing it in like multiple episodes of season 6 where she's like cracking under pressure and she's like, I need to tell someone, right? Like where people reach a breaking point. And and obviously, like she's like, okay, I'm gonna confide in Luca and then reverse time. And I think that's the part that confuses me in this episode. It's like I get it, she wants to confide in him, but why did she just decide, oh, right after I confess, I'm just gonna reverse what I just told him. So
Yeah,
that part was a little bit weird. So I think that caught me off
yeah.
guard.
And you're not the only one who thinks that because on TikTok somebody posted about how they didn't also understand why Marinette wanted to reverse time, and in a way it kind of felt like it felt very like wrong of Marinette to do that because she basically just flew all the way to Brazil, emotionally dumped all of her
Hmm.
baggage on Luca, and then reversed time. Like it feels very not out of character, but it's like whoa, like it's like
Yeah.
oh, she was like that's not fair, and I don't think Marinette would naturally do that unless there was like specific circumstances for her to do that, because that's really crazy if you think about it, like just ranting to someone and pouring such heavy like topics like oh I lied to the entire world. It's like she knew how Alia acted, and she knew
Yeah.
like this isn't a light secret, like this is going to affect a lot of people. Once I carry it and give it to somebody else, they now have to carry that burden as well.
Hmm.
But it's like, okay, like it felt really bad because it's like it's worse when you think about it, the fact that she specifically went to Luca, who she
Hmm.
knows. Well, I guess you could say she didn't know that Luca still likes her because he reversed time himself. So that was bad on his part as well. So
Hmm.
I guess you could say they're both like even the playing field.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, still like it just felt really weird. Like, oh, I'm just gonna use you as my emotional dumping system, and then I'm gonna reverse time, so it's okay. But it's like even then, reversing time doesn't solve anything because like, yeah, I told you, but I still have to carry the secret because once I reverse time, you will remember a single thing. So it's like I'm still
Hmm.
carrying this burden. So I didn't really understand what her aim was. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
assume that once she saw Luca freak out, that was why she reversed time. I was it? No, but no, because she set the timer before she even got the chance to like confess. So she was always planning on reversing time regardless, which makes her look
Yeah.
so bad in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah, like because when I first saw that, I was just like, yeah, I'm kind of like, what was your aim? You're gonna emotionally dump and reveal this revelation that you lied to the entire world, especially Adrian, and then you're like, okay, let's see what his reaction is. Oh no, I better go reverse it. Like, because he reacted. I'm just like, but I think what was puzzling is that Luca asked Marinette for her earrings. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Like, why? And I know a lot of people are asking, why did he ask Marinette for her earrings? Is kind of the question. Because that's also another mystery. Um, I don't know if you were like puzzled by that Luca asked Marinette for her earrings.
I do too, and I do feel like that's intentional. Because it's like Luca knows how protective Marinette is of her identity. Like she
Hmm.
guards it with her life. And I feel like to the extent where like him having to ask her for her earrings, it must have been a very, very desperate situation, one that completely freaked Luca out. Because think about it, like Luca is the most zen and the most chill character,
Hmm.
too chill in some cases in the entire series. So for him to have that much of a that much of a reaction, it's like,
Hmm.
well, whatever Luca has seen and hasn't told anybody must have like been huge. Which I actually really liked that we saw that side of him
Hmm.
freaking out because it's like I like the idea of like Marinette is like we don't always know what the other person is carrying. Like we don't know what other people are going through. Luca might seem chill on the inside, but he's probably carrying so much baggage. And it makes sense because he is a time traveling miraculous holders. I've always said that the miraculous holders who handle time have to like carry so much of a baggage because it's like you're seeing things and you can't necessarily do anything about it and you can't tell the people you care about out of fear of changing the timeline. So whatever he
Hmm.
saw must have been really scary and he just couldn't tell Marinette.
Yeah. Yeah, so like it really has some intriguing aspects. Like Mr. Gress, like you said, a banger of an episode. And obviously I think what's weird to me is that I even forgot that little creature's name that was with Irupe. And someone said, "Is that a Kwami? Does she have a Kwami?" And then like I think I forgot. They said that's not a Kwami. I'm like, then what's their species name then? So like they look like the size of a Kwami, so I did not understand why the person literally said it's not a Kwami though. So I'm like, are they like another distant cousin or something of Kwamis? Like, um, but yeah, a very, very great episode. I truly enjoyed it. Ooh, okay. Next one is Sleeping Siren. Um, I want to know what you think about this episode.
Okay, this episode was a lot more recent. I feel like the episodes that have only just come out like a couple months ago, I probably wouldn't speak like too much on it because it's still fresh on my mind. But Sleeping Siren, I didn't. It's an okay episode. It's a Kim episode, so I just like, yay, I guess. Who cares about Kim? Um, it exists. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
say it's
okay.
the worst because it really isn't that bad. It exists. Um, I think the only part that I quite liked about it is I liked how, as much as the fandom have, given the name the Chopped Trio and we don't like them, I like how we see more of them. I do like how we've seen like, oh, Chloe's gone, but we have these, new bullies who um who are just bullies for the sake of being bullies. And I like that. And then we see, I think this episode was the first introduction to Fury. Um, so
Oh
we,
yeah.
so that automatically means that because we know that Fury's official introduction is in Grendiaper, which is episode like 17, but Sleeping
Yeah.
Siren is episode 16. So we already know like every episode in season 6 isn't really taking place in like a specific order. It's just kind of like all over the place.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I guess yeah, I don't know. I don't like even when I reacted to it, I couldn't think too much of an analysis. It's just kind of those episodes where it's like it doesn't really require you to think deep about it. I don't care for Kim all that much, and I don't find him a particularly interesting or funny character. I do
Hmm.
appreciate that they, try to hammer in on the idea like, hey, don't be so naive. Don't believe everything you hear. It could absolutely hurt the people you care about when you're so naive because you're unintentional about it. Um,
Hmm.
and I like the idea of, I guess, Kim's girlfriend, what's her name? Ondine, learning
Yeah,
that you can't force
Undine.
people to, like to kiss you. Like that crosses the line, so don't do that. Um,
Hmm. Like
other than that, it was just that, yeah.
yeah, like I think like what's interesting is that when they're like, oh, we need to deakumatize her, and then like literally Ladybug's like, no, you can't just kiss someone without their consent. I'm like, this is a very powerful lesson, very powerful message to be like telling your audience. Because back in the day with like the fairy tales, um there's always like where the guy kisses the girl, you know, and she's like sleeping, and like I said, this was written like what in like the 1900s, or something, or 1800s. Um, but they really showcase that like consent is always important. And I think that's a powerful thing to like teach your audience, you know. And at least when you think about it, like Ondine does also learn a lesson that like she kind of feels like obviously she has like insecurity that like I haven't like because she literally confides in the other girls and tells them that like Kim and I haven't even kissed yet. Because obviously a first kiss in your relationship, with the person you're dating can be very important. But at the same time, it's like, I think what's also interesting is that I think was it Diane, right? That literally
Yeah.
said, have you ever tried like asking him that you want to kiss? And she's like, that's not romantic at all. And then she kind of talks about the unrealistic expectations. And then like Alia's like, those are just fairy tales though, And Marinette brings up a good point that like um sometimes it takes a while for couples to get to that point, And Marinette's like, you need to be patient because remember when I think when Adrian and Marinette first started dating, they had a hard time trying to kiss. Like
Mm.
I forgot what episode it was, and then literally their classmates were just watching them, and they're like, "How hard is it to kiss?" Right? Like they're all looking like, "How difficult is it?" And then Ollie's like, "For these two, it's always complicated." So I think I love how Marinette gives her experience that like it's definitely tough. It's definitely tough to actually, um, and like you said, you can't force someone into a kiss unless they want to. Or sometimes for some guys, you have to tell them you want to kiss, because here's the thing, like we're not mind readers, like whether if it's from the guy or the girl's perspective, like we're not mind readers. Sometimes you have to communicate what you want, because like I said, there's some guys out there that just don't like, they need to be told, if you know what I mean. Like they need to be told if you want a kiss or something. So, but yeah, like you said, it just exists. It's not bad, but it's just, it just exists. So I definitely agree on that. Ooh, Reckless Driver. This one, I think I would say for me, it goes either in awesome or godly because I love the use of therapy and the message about therapy. Because not a lot of like cartoon shows really dive into therapy.
Yes. I agree. I'm gonna put it on godly.
Ooh.
Because I remember vividly, like so I'm just trying to, so when we go over these, I remember like one, how long the reaction video was. The longer the video, the more I had to say. So that's always a good sign. I remember Mr. Agreste, Revelator, and what Revelator was actually a shorter video because it wasn't a reaction, it was more of a review. Um, but Mr. Agreste and Revelator were like Mr. Agreste and Wreckless Driver were like 37 minutes long of a reaction video, which most of it compiled of just me yapping about it. I liked Reckless Driver a lot. I absolutely loved it. Like you said, it really talked about the idea of, not the idea, but the concept of therapy, um, and what exactly therapy is, which, yeah, obviously everyone knows what therapy is, but not a lot of people know what it entails. And I think it breaks a lot of, you know, preconceived notions. Because it's like that specific line where Ugly is like, panicking or whatever, and she's like yelling at the therapist. And the therapist is like, yeah, but like it's not a one-off thing. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not here to fix you. It's more so you're like you have to do 90% of the work. I'm just here to sort of guide you and help you acknowledge your feelings. It's not like a magical cure or anything.
Yeah.
Um, so that was that. And I liked how Alia spoke about how like yes, you're Adrian's girlfriend, Marinette, but like you're not his therapist. You're not his like,
Mm-hmm.
the person that has to take on every single emotional baggage. Sometimes we need professional help, and that doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
you're any less useless, any less useful, but it means we need to know what role to take on and not accidentally
Mm-hmm.
take on a role that we shouldn't take on, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, and I think this episode also fed more into the Alglaze Lila
Mm-hmm.
theory. But that was my least intriguing part of the episode. I don't think I'm an Alglaze Lila truther. I mean, I could see why she probably would be, but like I've become less focused on like theories the older I've grown and the more I've watched Miraculous and just more focused on like what is the right ink, telling you if that makes sense. Um, and also the one thing that I haven't really mentioned compared to the other episodes, I feel like Reckless Driver's Akuma scene was really, really great. I feel like it lasted a decent amount of time and it showcased every hero. I think it was Julika, Purple Tigress, Cat Noir, um, I don't know who else was there. Polly Mouse,
Yeah, Polymouse.
Pegasus, and maybe somebody else that was that I don't remember. It showcased how each of them is important. I feel like it was a fun Akuma battle scene. So it was a great
Mm-hmm.
balance between like heavy, heavy, serious topics and a really great scene that juxtaposes that. And I think another thing I really liked about this is it actually talked about the effect of the akumatizations. For five whole
Mm-hmm.
seasons, we have not seen a single character be affected by it. They sort of
Mm-hmm.
treat it like it's normal, and in the way, it has become their everyday life for them. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like knowing that you could die at any point in time and then be brought back. Like that's so crazy to me. So I'm glad they
Yeah.
actually talked about it because it's like, hello, like if I was in Paris, I would be deeply traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like I really love how they did not sugarcoat, Aglae's like trauma, you know, and like you said, I kind of like how also wait, what was this therapist's name? I keep forgetting her
Um,
name.
Dr. Cat. It was spelled really funny though. But yes, Cat.
Okay, Dr. C Cat. Um, I think I love how she didn't sugarcoat it that like therapy is not just a one-time thing. Like it's to help you get your feelings out and I give you some guidance on how you can navigate, overcoming it and moving on, you know. And and I think that's very important because, not a lot of people, that, like you said, not a lot of people know the notions, the full extent of therapy, because we obviously had like other characters going to this therapist as well. Like I think Alia, Max, Milan, and Julika also go to her as well. So I think it's just really cool that they kind of mention like I feel good talking to her, and stuff. And I think it's just a very powerful thing because in cartoon media, they don't like not a lot of kids' cartoons go into like characters going to therapy. They don't really touch upon it. And this is like one of those rare occasions that they do. So I think like I said, I agree with you. It's a godly episode because, like I said, it's a rare episode where they talk about therapy. And I think they do a great job where it makes sense for kids to understand what therapy entails. So I think, they did a pretty great job with that.
I agree.
Oh, okay. Let me see the next episode. Oh, the Dark Castle. Oh, this one was like, oh, this was so confusing. I'm gonna say that because I'm gonna say it till the end of time. When you try implementing time travel. It may sound easy to understand on paper, but executing it is even more difficult. And I was very confused in this episode, to be honest. Like, where did the loop start is the question. Because obviously Marinette did not get this like idea, until her future self. Like, but it's like
Gave it.
apparently this kind of shows it as a loop, but where did this loop start is the
It's a
question.
paradox. So that's a plot
Mm.
hole. It's a paradox. Miraculous has been doing paradoxes for so long because I think paradoxes work where like in order for a loop to begin, something else has to happen. But it's like, how would that thing have happened if that other thing didn't happen? So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. But yeah, like you said, I've stopped trying to figure out the whole time travel. I think they should just stop using it. They should use it sparingly. It was fine in the London special. I think only for specific occasions it's fine. The more you use it and the more you use Bunnets, the less of an impact it has and the more confusing it gets.
Hmm. Yeah, like it confused me because I watched this with Kevin, and right after the episode, and we're just like, what did we just watch? Like, I kind of like the subplot thing where we see like Alex's older brother like really misses his sister. It kind of shows that they have like a bond with each other. Which is
Mm,
adorable. I like that aspect because he's looking at a picture of him and his sister when they were younger, and it's like, I really miss Alex. I really miss my little sister. And he's like, it's almost Alex's birthday, but I can't even say happy birthday, which is so unfair. And it's like, yeah, like that's gonna be tough on Alex, to be away from them, and to be stuck in the burrow while she gets to see her other friends live their lives. It's like, but Alex takes it with stride though. You know, I have to admit, like she takes it with stride and pride that like I know this is what I'm meant to do, even though she has to be away from them.
hmm. Yeah. And I like how at the end, Marina is feeling really guilty about having to sort of like exile Alex. But Alex is like, okay, if I come back, that means I'm gonna get the Ladybug Miraculous and we can swap. And it just shows that each and every one of us, I mean, at least for them, in the heroes team is playing a crucial part. Not one role is less important than the
Hmm.
other. And we all have like our burdens. Like Alia is Marinette's confidant, and if anything happens to Marinette, then Alia will now become the guardian and will have access to Marinette's memories through the Quagatama thing. So that itself is a big burden.
Hmm.
Adrian has to literally carry around the power of destruction. Felix and Kagami know that their lives are in the hands of an object. And if that object breaks, if somebody gets that object, it's game over for them. Alex
Hmm.
has to stay in the burrow for God knows how long because it's unsafe for her to, come out of that because the butterfly miraculous is still on the loose. Luca is carrying his own burdens and nobody knows what he's going through. Everyone on that team is suffering from something and they have a big role to play when it comes to defeating the new butterfly holder. And I really like how Alex emphasized that, hey, like, yeah, it sucks, but your job is just as hard as my job. So really feel like we should cut each other some slack and just
Hmm.
kind of like suck it up and make the best out of it. I think that was the only part of the episode that I found honestly really good because the episode was kind of underwhelming for me. I'll be so honest. I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah,
I had the least
underwhelming.
to say. Like I was going through my videos and I just went through the Dark Castle one and I remember like I just kept like I could visibly see myself trying to think of an analysis, but I'm like there isn't much to analyze here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel like this should be like it exists because that's
It
kind
does.
of because it's like okay, it's like I guess they want to show us what Alex was been, doing, and they want to like it's not bad, but like I said, it's like I think the convolutedness of the time travel thing just like I'm sorry. No, I don't understand it. I can't comprehend. Like I kind of feel like I'm like a robot where it's like does not compute what I just watched. Um, but yeah, it was like an okay episode, but I do like the parts, at least with Alex, and she kind of just like, hey, I know you were just being considerate of my feelings, but this is my duty and responsibility. Like Alex knows the power that she possessed is a huge responsibility.
Mm,
Obviously she learned this from her adult self, you know, like that her adult self has passed on to her that like, this power is very, very, very powerful and it's also a huge responsibility. And Alex is well aware of that, even though it sucks for her to stay in the burrow, but she's learned to accept the responsibility, of having this very powerful miraculous. So, ooh, okay. What's the next one? Oh, Yaksi Gozen. I'm very curious. What are your thoughts on Yaksi Gozen?
godly,
Godly?
godly, yeah, godly.
Ooh.
It was such a good episode. I had so much to say about it, like so much. And even then I had to like cut down the video. Like that video was an hour long. I had to cut it down by like 20 minutes. I just had so much to say. Um, I absolutely love the Kagami content. Keep them coming. Um, and I just the episode was really great. Great use of flashbacks. I feel like the episodes that have been using flashbacks are the ones that I've put in godly. um minus the exception of like Werepapas and like I think that was the only one actually. Um so let me try to remember what Yaksi Gozen. I feel like Yaksi Gozen was very interesting because it honestly has nothing to do with the main overarching plot, but it still feels very, very important. It feels like a major episode. And that's crazy to me. But then again, it's not so crazy because you realize it's episode driven by Felix and Kagami, and they don't need to, to function in the main overarching plot to drive the story. Like they are strong enough characters to drive their own story and still be intriguing, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
I like how we started off. How did we start off actually with the episode? Actually, doesn't really matter. But the main parts of the episode, Kagami confronting her mother and telling her like, "Hey, you don't have this leverage over me anymore. Your abuse does not work because I have a leverage over you. If it's not for me, if it wasn't for me, you'd be rotting in jail right now. So I'd be
Mhm.
very, very careful of what you say to me and how you treat me." Um,
Mhm.
and then I also think this was the episode where we fully see Lila in person.
Yeah.
And she's like
Mhm.
trolling Kagami's mom. She's like, I only watched it in the French dub. I saw glimpses of it in the English dub, and I was like, I think the French dub in this episode was a bit better. Like there are some episodes where the English dub is way better than the French. This wasn't one of them. So I
Mhm.
stuck with it in the French dub. How Lila even manipulates Tomoe, that was very interesting. And we got her transformation, which was crazy. I don't know where this episode sort of falls in. I think chronologically, is this like towards the end? Or not the end, but like is this like episode 7, not 17? Is it 17? Or like 15? I don't remember. But yeah, I just what else was really great? Kagami and Felix's relationship, despite the fact that I don't like how they got together, I think they work. They work as a couple. If they were written better, I would 100% get behind them. They work as a couple. And I like the idea of like, oh, like, hey, yes, we're sentient beings, but like there's still a threat out there and we need to, take precautions. But at the same time, it kind of just made me kind of upset not upset, but it's like they were thinking about their own rings, but they didn't even factor in the fact that Adrian is also a sentient being. So it's like, hello, are we gonna try and tell Adrian that he's one? Like we're trying to protect our rings and our lives, so we're just gonna let Adrian wander around with it. And yes, Adrian has his own ring, but
Mhm.
like still, um, and how they explained the whole quantum physics thing to Marinette, that was really interesting. I was like, oh, I'm learning something new here.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I liked it. I think my favorite part of the episode was Lila's entire plan. It was a great plan, if for the
Hmm.
fact that Kagami and Felix were one step ahead. And I think that's what makes this episode so like interesting. Because if Kagami and Felix weren't proactive in trying to protect themselves, Lila's plan would have worked.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely would have. You know, I think also I think I also enjoyed the subplot because I think the episode started out with like Marinette doing like this like birdhouse thing. Um and stuff. And then Agent's like, I need to do something, I need to do like a romantic gesture. And he tried to do knitting, and then that didn't turn out, it turned out ugly. And then she's like, oh, what's this? Is it a sweater? Or something like she's trying to figure out. Um, but I think what was also intriguing that people have pointed out that like, like if you rub the ring, you can influence the senti being. Right? So Adrian unknowingly like caused his cousin to like act differently, and they're like, whoa. And people have pointed that out. They're like, oh my gosh, Adrian accidentally controlled his cousin. Which is wild because I think Adrian was just showing them a magic trick and stuff. Um, and then he unknowingly changed Felix's like personality. So but I kind of like, I love when they lost the rings, you see like Marinette, Felix, and Kagami just like freaking out, and they're like trying to find where the rings went.
Mm.
Like everyone's like, I need more of this trio dynamic. It's so intriguing. I laugh so hard at that. And then they're all trying to explain, and then Adrian's still so confused. I think the most randomest thing is that I think Adrian tried to bring like meat, and then a dog just stole it from him. I'm like, oh, how did that happen so fast? It was the most randomest thing in that episode, but it was hilarious. But yeah, this episode was definitely godly. Like I enjoyed it, like you said, I was at the edge of my seat. I'm like, I think it was a good thing that like at least that Lila did not get Felix's like ring. That was pretty lucky on their part. If you know what I mean. They
Yeah.
got they got lucky on that part. So, but yeah, this episode was godly for sure. Um, ooh, okay. No way.
Um, I'm in between it exists and mid because I feel like it introduced a very important character who I feel like we are gonna see, which is Noe.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, this character is very important. He's part of the council. He's the new diamond of the council, which is what Gabriel was. So this guy is clearly going to be an antagonist. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I think what makes it mid overall is one, I didn't really care for the fact that he was Audrey's child. I don't think he needed to be Audrey's child. They treated it like it's some sort of plot twist. And
Hmm.
maybe some people might have been shocked, but it's like, Eh, me, I just don't care. Like, what difference would it
Yeah.
what difference would it make if he's Audrey's child or not? I think he functions well enough as a villain with or
Yeah.
without being related to Audrey. Um,
Mhm.
so that was that. And it's supposed to be a Milen-centered episode,
Yeah.
but I feel like it just didn't do much for her character in this episode. To say, I don't know if you watched my Noe reaction, but I mentioned how Milen and Julika, which I will talk about when we go on to Vampigami, have the same issue where like they have the same episode every single time. They learn the same lesson every single time, and it's just like we can learn different aspects of the same lesson, and that's completely fine. But if it's like the same lesson every single episode, you're this is not a character arc. At this point, it's just a character reset. So I feel like this episode just didn't do much for Milen's character um at all. It's just like, oh, if anything, it did more for her dad than Milen.
Yeah,
And
'cause
I feel like the other aspects of this episode, like the fact that this movie company is making a whole movie or trying to make a whole movie and spin lies on Ladybug and Cat and What, I feel like that outshone Milen's aspects of the episode, and obviously the new villain. Like those were more important aspects. Milen was just kind of there.
yeah, like I think it was like they were trying to um maybe put in too much. It kind of
Mm,
felt like there was too much going on because obviously they were introducing No Way, which the episode was named after him for a reason. Um,
mm,
and then it's like obviously, this is supposed to be focusing on Milen and her dad, but it's like, well, it kind of feels like the No Way like subplot kind of like took most of it, because No Way was pretty much like the driving force of the episode. Um, so yeah, like it kind of felt like it was like a little bit out of place. Like it's kind of like, are we supposed to focus on Milen and her dad, or are we supposed to focus on No Way? So I think that was like the confusing part. So so I can see why, yeah, I do agree it is mid because it kind of feels like the balancing was a little bit weird in this episode. You know how we talked about with like Mr. Agreste, they balanced
mm.
that pretty well. With the subplot of like Luca, where it's like they didn't really need to put the Luca subplot in there, but it's like it doesn't take away from the thing. But with No Way, it's kind of like it you're I feels like they're playing a juggling act. You're kind of like, what are we supposed to focus on? Milen and her dad, or are we supposed to focus on No Way? Right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like it's like a juggling act. Like you're trying to figure out what are we supposed to focus on, So I feel like, it's an okay episode, but it kind of just feels like we don't know what we're supposed to focus on. So so that's something I agree with. So um ooh, okay. We're down to the last two as Grendiaper.
Um, okay, out of all the episodes that we've talked, I think Grendiaper is definitely my most conflicting episode. Like it was a great episode, but some parts of it, it just had me really debating, and I was like, huh,
Mm.
I'm gonna put it in awesome.
Mm.
I'm gonna put it in awesome because I like what they were, what message they were going for, and I think it was very interesting one for Zoe's character. I think I like the route they took with Zoe's character, the whole vigilantism, and is vigilantism justified? What
Mm.
does it mean to be a hero? What does it mean to want justice, etc. um and I like this everything about that episode when it came to Zoe was great. The idea of her suit changing
Mm-hmm.
its color and changing its design, and she did it unintentionally because it
Mm-hmm.
reflected her mental state. I like that. I went on about it for like 10 minutes talking about it in my reaction. I definitely had the most to say about this. I think this one was like a 40-minute episode, my longest one yet.
Ah, yeah, like I think this is it kind of introduces it kind of shows a little bit of lore that like depending on your like emotional mental state, it can change your costume. Because
Mm,
even Zoe was like confused and she had to ask Pauline, whoa, my costume was not like how it usually is. Why is that? And then Pauline like explains, it depends on like your emotional mental state. So I was like, that's interesting. And and obviously, from what we see from Zoe, like she obviously she had to deal with Ray, with Ray's like Ray's terrible behavior and bullying, you know? And she's like, "Oh, as a superhero, I should be able to bring justice, right?" But obviously she's going about it the wrong way, you know. Obviously Ladybug is like, "I don't agree with this vigilante like taking this initiative because if you do that, you're not really teaching the person any lesson because you're kind of just stooping to their level." And I think, I think it's an intriguing thing because I think Zoe, she tried to at least do something to tell the principal that, hey, like this student is doing something bad, but because Ray is so rich, obviously because his dad bailed him out, you know, and that got Zoe like infuriated, like, oh my gosh. And she felt like maybe that maybe if I give them a taste of their own medicine, they'll learn. It's like, no, you're just only, I think what I love is that if you try to take revenge on someone, you're only stooping to their level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's what this episode was trying to tell the viewers that don't ever take the revenge route because or vigilante route because you're just stooping to that bad person's level. Because obviously we know Ray and I forgot the other two dudes' names at this point, but obviously they're bullies. They're terrible people. We know that for sure. But stooping to their level, and thinking that, oh, this will probably teach them a lesson. It's like, no, you're only just stooping to their level. They're not going to learn their lesson, you know? Because obviously that really backfired with the akumatized villain. I forgot the boy's name, but he got humiliated, I think. And then that's how he got akumatized, I think. um, if I remember correctly. But it really
Mm.
shows that Zoe doing that, it's like, Zoe, you do realize you just caused an akumatized villain because like, you thought you were serving justice by doing that, but the way you went about it caused this person to be akumatized because you thought from your perspective he would learn his lesson, but that only made it worse. So I think, this is a very powerful lesson. And I think they did a great job showcasing that. That's just me though.
No, I agree with you. Um, and I like the idea that the episode doesn't really, I think the strongest part of the episode is that it doesn't tell you that, or doesn't try to convince you that Ladybug is right and
Yeah.
Zoe's wrong, or Zoe's right and Ladybug is wrong. It kind of like, oh, both of them have their own opinions and both of them are right in their own ways, but both of them are also being quite black and white about it. They're not
Yeah.
really finding the gray area of it. So it
Mhm.
asks, I feel like this episode is asking us more to sort of think and debate on certain topics that we wouldn't usually think about every day. And I think that's where the episode shines the most.
Mhm.
I just feel like where it doesn't shine, as in like why it's not in the godly section is because I don't actually know. Like there are some parts of it that I do feel like could have been done a little better. Like because the people that Zoe was taking revenge on or getting justice on, I feel like they could have been a bit more bolder with that. And I mentioned the little a bit of sloppy writing from the writers part on specifically the three like thugs that Zoe
Mhm.
gets revenge on. I mentioned like some implications, unintentional implications. I think it's important when depicting certain things, um, just being careful about what message it is you're trying to spread. So long story short, I felt like the three thugs, like all of them being depicted as people of color was a very interesting choice, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not saying
Mm,
people of color can't be complete assholes and be criminals. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like they want us to. It's just funny because they are the ones that were terrorizing Andre, but arguably Andre has done a lot worse over the
hmm
past 5 seasons. So it's like which they want us to like forgive Andre, um,
hmm
and they victimize him, but it's like, interesting. It rubbed me the wrong way. I was kind of side-eyeing. So I think that was what rubbed me. I feel like if that wasn't included, it'd definitely be in Godly. Whereas the ones in Godly were more like, oh, there was like very, very little flaws with the episode.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, there is some aspects of the episode where it's like, I wish this was written better. Yeah. Yeah, but overall, yeah, it was definitely a pretty good episode, because they really talk about, like the gray areas, like you said, there's um like you said, with like Zoe, yeah, with Zoe and Ladybug's like perspectives, it's like you said, the episode doesn't tell you who's right and who's wrong. Everything is like in a gray area, because Zoe obviously has a different opinion because she knows Ray, and I'm pretty sure she knows the other two dudes too. But obviously she has like a really terrible history with this guy. So that's why she feels strongly hate this dude, which you can't really blame her. He's probably done a lot more terrible things that haven't been said as of yet. But so it really brings it to the perspective of vigilante, like the morality aspect. And I think they do a great job at least expressing that, in this episode. So it's kind of like the conflict of like between a hero and a vigilante. So yeah, that's my thoughts. And the final episode, Vampigami. Well, this one's an interesting one, I'll have to say. I actually I actually enjoy the specific part of the episode with I think when Marinette was about to transform in the restroom and there was like a camera there
Mhm.
and Tiki like told her don't transform and then Marinette's like why? Because there's a camera. And like if it wasn't for Tiki spotting that, Marinette would have been caught red-handed right there. You know,
Yeah.
like that was like oh my gosh. I was like that part, I was like I said, Tiki being the smart one saw the camera. And obviously Kwamis can't be seen or taken photos of, because that's been part of the lore since like what, season 2 or 3? Or ever since the beginning. Like you can't really see Kwamis, like you can't take photos of them. Like they won't appear on cameras or photos, I think, to my knowledge. Um, so Marinette got lucky that Tiki saw the camera because if Tiki did not see that camera and she transformed, Lila would have got her proof and evidence right there because Lila was very suspicious of Marinette and she literally planted that camera in the restroom. Like, oh my gosh, I was like, see, this is how you know you're dealing with a competent villain. Like, um, like I was like, oh my gosh, now Lila's trying to catch her in the act. Because obviously Tomoe isn't really convinced that Marinette is Ladybug, but Lila has her suspicions. And like I said, we all know Lila is a smart person. She's manipulative, she's cunning, and a lot more smarter than smooth brain Gabriel, as Smarty Pants would call him. um but yeah, I think that aspect of the episode really got me. And then at the end of that episode, she pulls Cat Noir aside and she's like, Cat Noir, I'm gonna tell you this because this is very important. Like this akumatized villain was a distraction because whoever the new holder is, they're trying to find out our identity. So be on your guard.
Mm.
And this is how you know things are going to get more serious. Now they have to be more vigilant. Like they have to be sure there's like no cameras if they're going to transform while they're out in public. Because this episode really solidifies that, like, okay, now that, like, because of Tiki telling Marinette before she was going to transform, um, that, oh snap, this new holder is trying to find out our identities. This is a threat. And I think it's really going to lead to some really interesting stuff in the later episodes, and I'm super excited. Um,
Yeah.
were you surprised by the camera thing? I'm very curious, G.
I was surprised by it because like I think the way the episode was edited was quite clever. Like we find out very quickly that Lila is in the same place as Marinette and Adrian and Juleka and Rose or whatever. Um or Prem and Rose. Um so then when like Tiki comes out of the bag and spots the camera, and then we're reminded that Kwame's can't be seen on camera. It's like it's
Hmm.
something but it's like you're still shocked about it because like, whoa, they finally used the fact that Kwame's can't be seen on camera for like an important plot, and it quite literally saved Marinette.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that was probably the highlight um of the episode as well. Vampigami was honestly like a very interesting, like it was a great episode. Um I think the strongest part of it was how Adrianette's little plot, mirrors their bigger plot.
Hmm.
Um, so Marinette lying about, liking the vampire horror thing musical, and
Hmm.
feeling like she has to lie to Adrian just to impress him because she's afraid that he'd leave her. That mirrors obviously her lying about something much, much bigger than that. I think this episode shone a lot more when it was just focused on that and the whole like Lila trying to find out Marinette is Ladybug or trying to prove that Marinette is Ladybug. Again, like no way. I just feel like this episode didn't really shine and did I don't think it did much for Juleka's character,
Hmm.
except that scene. I take my words back. Except that scene. She confronts Luca on the phone and she's like, "Why did you leave me?" I think that was a very important part because it shows that
Hmm.
she has abandonment issues, and that's something they actually didn't quite delve into in her character up until now.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like it really shows because obviously, Luca has very good reason to leave though, because obviously he knows Ladybug and Cat Noir's identities. And probably, probably Lila is aware of this, because like I said, we both know. And the Miraculous community knows that Lila is a smart villain. Like, so Luca's like, I don't want to chance this, so it's like that's understandable. And like, because I want to see if there's like an episode where it focuses on Juleka about her abandonment issues, because obviously she and her like twin brother have like a bond, they have like an emotional connection, so I think um I want to see if there's like an episode that focuses on that because yeah, like it's just only that one scene in Vampigami, and you're like, do we not like address this? But I think it's also I think, this episode like again really shows that Lila is a smart villain because, you have, Lila does show up at places where Marinette and Adrian are and probably their other classmates go to. And we see that in the post-credit scene where she's literally right there where she sees Marinette. Like right after the episode ends and then Marinette runs off. And then she's just like talking to Tomoe. And then
Mm,
like obviously Tomoe is just very skeptical. I'm like, I don't think she's Ladybug. And then like, oh, she is. And obviously Lila knows, okay, I need to get actual proof. And I think what's interesting also that she uses akumatized villain as like a cover for what she was doing. And I think that was smart, because obviously she's trying to like catch Marinette specifically. Um, and I think that was a smart thing to do as a villain. Like, use an akumatized villain to find out the identity of Ladybug. Because obviously her gripe is with Ladybug and she has her suspicion that Marinette is Ladybug. But she's like, okay, Tomoe will not believe me. Okay, I need to like um, plant a camera somewhere and catch it and then get it recorded and then I have my actual proof. And I think that's just a smart thing to do because Gabriel never did this at all. Like I said, I agree with Smarty Pants. Gabriel was a smooth brain villain. Lila just knows, you know, um, that she's like, okay, I need to catch. And because obviously, she's doing it off of speculation and suspicion, but she's like, but of course, I need the actual proof, that she is Ladybug because like I said, like she could say anything and then Tomoe's just skeptical of her, which understandably so. So, I think that was the most shocking part of this episode, but it just works so well with the drama, I would say, because like Lila is a villain who loves to hide in plain sight. And I think that's a great way to like because obviously, um she's trying to do this and pulling something like that, it's like, oh my gosh, like obviously she was targeting Marinette specifically, so that's also very telling. So I was like, oh my gosh. Like what was did your heart jump out when you saw that part? Were you like, oh my gosh, Marinette could have got caught on camera?
It didn't jump out specifically for that part, but it jumped out because if this was Lila's best plan, I can only imagine that she's gonna go even harder next time.
Mm.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, like because if she went to the extent of planting a camera in a public restroom, it's like, what else is she gonna pull? It's like, I agree with you. It's like, what else is she gonna pull? Like, because now it's kind of like, now that at least like Cat Noir is aware, like, oh snap, I better be sure there's no cameras around, you know? Like, because if I was in Marinette's position, I would have been like, oh snap, I almost got caught transforming, so um but where would you put this episode in the tier list?
Um, I would put it mid.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I would say mid would be best because what saves it is just the way Lila like surprised Marinette with that, like pulling that type of like evil scheme to like get to pretty much expose herself. Um, because I was just like, whoa. And I'm like, Gabriel never thought to do this at all, which is crazy, So it just really shows. And I'm super excited for all these whenever we get the rest of season 6, like, but yeah, this is our tier list, everyone, for the season 6 episodes so far. From what I've heard, I don't know about the other episodes, but I think the episode of Fairy Goodnight is supposed to be coming in April, or I don't know the other dates, but they did say for like Disney Channel EMEA. But I don't know the other dates if it's gonna air in the US as of yet or French, so I don't know. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to do with you, G, to see what like your thoughts on these episodes so far.
Yeah, it was fun too. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I don't have any upcoming live streams, but it may be coming soon. But yeah, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I know this was a longer episode because, we love talking about Miraculous. Um, and this was our pretty much our reviews. Probably in a later episode of the Lucky Charm podcast, when season 6 ends, we'll do like an entire review of the entirety of the season. Because we have done that with the first 5 seasons. We're just waiting until the entire like season 6 ends. But season 6 is pretty solid, you know. I have to say at least the writing is like better than season 5 when she's Seiji.
Yes, 100%. It's a huge step up.
Yeah, so but yeah, don't forget to tune in because I have started doing a Leah reviews series where they're already pre-recorded of my reviews of like cartoons and anime and like other stuff that I watched, and I posted the first 2 already. They already premiered on my YouTube channel, and I reviewed the Sonic the Hedgehog presents the Chaotix Case Files. The first one was episode 0 and episode 1, because they actually did a very special premiere of episode 0 on Sam Procrastinates and Games Cage's live streams. So they were given the opportunity by Sega themselves to premiere episode 0. And then I just combined episode 0 and episode 1 because episode 1 came out the next day in the morning. So I just did the review together. And I did episode 2, which premiered like yesterday. Um, or Wednesday, one of those 2 days. So, but yeah, I'm gonna continue to do more Leah reviews. So be sure to look out for that. I'm hoping to do one also for an anime I recently finished watching and just waiting for season 2. So please keep that in mind. But yeah, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and of course, may you all have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Um, and all that smart stuff. So bye everyone.